A boss mom doesn't allow society to tell her that her goals no longer matter. She handles her business both inside and outside of the home. Welcome to the Boss Mom Movement Podcast with me, your host, Ashley White, where you'll hear me speak with millennial moms who have not allowed the title mom to stop them from achieving their goals. During this podcast series, we'll discuss how we balance it all and other mom-related topics. It's a space for all my bossy mamas, whether you're a mompreneur, mama in corporate, or both. Being a boss mom isn't easy, but it's our lifestyle. So with that being said, all right, boss moms, let the movement begin. Hey, Boss Moms, welcome back for another episode of the Boss Mom Movement Podcast with your host, Ashley White. You are here for season 5, and this is episode 10, ladies. This is the final episode for this season, and sad to say, I am going to be taking a little break after this season wraps just to kind of focus on some other things within the Boss Mom Movement, along with my career personally as well. So I'm excited to do this episode. We are going to be talking about chasing our kids and our career. And today I do have a special guest, Miss Corporate Mama, Millennial Mom, Ebony Dilworth with me here today. So welcome to the show, Ebony.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I actually came across Ebony's Instagram page, and I noticed that she was talking about being a corporate mom, being a millennial mom, and I was like, you know what? I definitely want to have her on the show just to talk about her experience. She's a mom of two, so I wanted to just kind of pick your brain today and talk about your experience of how you've been able to balance it out and just like your career trajectory, where you see yourself going. So I'm super excited to just jump into this conversation. But before we do, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience.
Awesome. So, as Ashley mentioned, my name is Ebony Dilworth. I'm a New Jersey based mom of two. So, I have a soon to be 5-year old son, Carter, and an almost 10-month-old daughter, Callie. They keep me very, very busy. In addition to that, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm all the things. I'm a Virgo. So, since we are recording this in Virgo season, shout out to all the Virgos. But as Ashley mentioned, I'm a corporate mama, so I have a full-time career within the tech space. So I work in advertising sales for one of the largest tech companies in the world. And I also have a nonprofit organization here in New Jersey geared towards high school girls, where we talk to them about everything, whether that be self-esteem, preparing for college if they don't want to go to college, finding other avenues to, fulfill their lives. So I've got a lot of things going on.
You do. I was just about to say you are super busy over there with two little ones. How do you manage all of that and just keeping like a tight schedule?
I'm I'm not yet thriving. I'm surviving right now. I'm
I
on
like
my way
that.
to thriving. I always want to, live in the thriving section of my life. But right now I'm surviving since it's like new to me again,
Hmm.
being a new mom again. But it's just really managing my time, which I've never been that great at. A lot of people think like Virgos are like super organized, super button up. I am a hot mess. I live on like procrastination and just doing
Hmm.
all the things. So it's hard, but they're all things that I'm passionate about. So I
You're
make
right.
time.
Right. No, I totally understand because I feel like I'm in the same boat and I love the saying you're surviving because I feel like I am too. Like, still working on trying to get like that routine. Like, that's one of my goals right now is like even just waking up earlier. Like, I just tell myself getting up at 7:45 allows me, or between 7:30 7:45, just that time alone with no one to interrupt me about anything and
The
just get
best
my mind
feeling.
together. Right. And it's quiet. But now we are back in school and you getting the kiddo. Well, both of your babies are in school,
Yeah.
right?
So my son, this is his last year. He has a late birthday, so although he's going to be
Okay.
5 in October, this is his last year in preschool. And my daughter, she just started daycare last week.
How
So I
has
was
that
home
been?
for, I was on maternity leave for 8 months. So I was home with
Hmm.
her for 8 months. Then my husband took paternity leave after, and
Okay.
she's in daycare. So it's been an adjustment. Girls are different. I never believed anyone when they say them girls, they're different. But
Mm-hmm.
she is a firecracker. She is a mama's girl.
Oh,
So I knew it was going to be a tough adjustment, but I knew it was going to be a good one that was much needed. So she's slowly getting used to the people at daycare. She's not
that's
napping
good.
through the day yet.
Hmm.
So, baby steps, but it feels
Right.
good for me. Like it is a weight lifted off of my shoulders.
Oh my gosh. Like I was so nervous. Like my son is a little over one now, and I'm like, he's still not in daycare. Even though I do have those days where I'm just like, I don't know, you might need to get in daycare so I
It is
can
the
just,
best feeling, but that's your first, so I totally
yeah.
get it. But it is like on the first day, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, how are you? Like, were you in the parking lot crying?" I was like, "No,
Look, you're
I
like,
went to Starbucks. I was like, peace out. I went to Starbucks, and I
right.
just felt like I could be a lot more productive because I've been working from home since the pandemic. So although I am kind of on a hybrid schedule, about 95% of the time I'm working
Hmm.
from home, and then 5% of that I'll go into the office. But
Okay.
her having her home, even though I wasn't taking care of her, while you know she was home, just like even going to the kitchen or something was like a task because she would see
Tell
me
me about it.
and be like, "Hey, where are you going?"
Exactly. Take me with you. No,
Yes.
so you've been working home since the pandemic. And so how was that just juggling? Because that's why I do as well, working from home with my little one. So how have you been able to juggle that, or at least when the kids were home, now that they're away, but like when they
It
were,
was
how was that?
rough. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Sorry, I was plugging my charger in. There we go. See, hot mess.
Uh,
So during the pandemic, so at the start of the pandemic, I was only a mom of one. So I just
okay.
had my son. So it wasn't that bad because my husband is in education and he was kind of like on a hybrid. Sorry, I'm trying to fix his camera back.
No,
Fix
no,
this
you're
out.
good.
Um, he was, I'm just gonna hold it for now. He was on a hybrid schedule. I mean, not a hybrid schedule. He was based. I think they call it asynchronous schedule.
Okay,
So
yeah.
they just posted what they needed to post, and then the students would do the work, or
Hmm.
like they would have like I guess open office hours, etc. So he wasn't really teaching from home for the first part of the pandemic, like because it started in March. So March through June, he wasn't teaching from home. He just had to be on at certain times, so that was fine. Like
Hmm.
it worked with my meeting schedule. But then when he started having to teach, by the time he went back to like teaching remote, I believe daycare had opened back up. So my son was home for when it's like 5 or 6 months. They opened up at the beginning of the summer, but we kept him home through the summer. And then he went back that September in 2020. So it was
Okay.
hard. It was a little hard, but he was younger then
Hmm.
because 4 or 5 is a whole different ballgame. Like
Yeah.
those are like adults, like true adults. So it was just he was a good napper, so he would nap for like 2 hours throughout the day. So that was fine. We got through that. Like we got past that hurdle. Working from home with my daughter, even though my husband was on paternity leave and he was downstairs with her, it was still like she still wanted to nurse, even though like she
Hmm.
had milk in a bottle. So that was a little tough.
Right.
And then just feeling like, oh, I want to go play with her, or I want to, have lunch with her or something. I didn't feel like I was that productive as work or at work or as much as I would like to be,
Hmm.
because I was focusing on work, I was focusing on home. But my job has been
Hmm.
like super supportive about like my transition back to work. But now that she's gone, I'm like laser focused on work. So we made it through.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up about your job just being super supportive, because that's something that I always like to um, encourage my audience to find. If you are in that 9 to 5 or corporate space, is like one thing that's important, at least that I've have found, is finding a position in a company that is supportive of you being a mother, regardless if your child or children are at home with you or not, because we know things do happen, emergencies.
Sorry.
um, we know that emergencies happen, and you want to. You
Yeah,
good?
can we pause for 1 second? This thing
Yeah, yeah. I was
keeps
gonna say we can pause.
falling. I don't know what the hell's wrong with my stand. Jeez Louise. Okay, I think I'm good now. I think it was tilted too far to the front.
You good? Um. So what was I saying?
Okay, yeah.
So yes, having that support is important because we do have sometimes emergencies that happen. So even if your children aren't at home, maybe you have to run to the school or do something with the kids. And so just having a company and a position that really understand that you are a mom and are able to work with you. Like, would you agree that that is something that is important and that you've been able to have a good company like that to support you?
It's super important, and like when I hear just the fact of like maternity leave in this country is crazy, and it varies by state. And like I think when I hit my 12-week mark with my daughter, I sat there and I was like, "There's no way I would be able to go back to work right now." Like
Mm-hmm.
she literally is nursing nonstop all day. Like I felt terrible, that people really have to go back to work after 12 weeks. So I think it's super important. I know it's hard, finding a company you love or depending on someone's education level or skill level, like that could be barriers. But it's super important to find a company that appreciates
Mm-hmm.
you, one, and two, gives you that balance. And I do think, and when I started my company 7 years ago, I didn't have kids, so I wasn't necessarily thinking about that at the time. But
Exactly.
in my interview, just like some of the questions, when I was talking to people and how they talked about their families, like if they had families at the time, I knew that it would be a super supportive company. So prior to COVID, they were like all about work-life balance. And I think during COVID, they just accelerated that and just changed like the whole work model altogether. But I just can't even imagine what that would look like if I didn't have the balance to be a great employee, a mom, and then again, all the other things I have going on in my life. Like
Exactly.
it's hard balancing it, but they've been great about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get you because I was like, before having kids, like, not to say I wasn't interested in work life balance because I definitely was, but it was not as much as I would be now. Like if I were to be going into an interview for a new role, because I did start a new job as I was on maternity leave. Actually, I got hired for my new job. And so at that point I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, that is definitely important. And they were able to show exactly what you said, that they do believe in work life balance. And I mean, I don't think I've worked for a place that like gave mental health days and, encourage you to be off. Like I'm the type of person, I normally have my email on my phone. And when I started this job, my boss was like, you don't need that. If you're off, you're off. I was like, what? So
And you became a mom during that time, so that changes everything. Like you're like
exactly.
you value things differently, and I don't think work is necessarily at the top of that list. When you become a mom, so that's great that you had a boss that was supportive and that was like, no, that's not the culture here.
Exactly, exactly. So let's go back because you did mention that you started your job well, this particular job anyway, 7 years ago. You weren't a mom at that time. So how do you feel, or if you even feel that your goals within your career have shifted? Do you think that they have shifted? Are you on the track that you initially presented for yourself when you started?
That's a good question. So when I started this job, I was managing people at my old job. And I said I never want to manage people again. Like it was, and again, I didn't even have kids at that point, but I was like, not for nothing. I don't want to be responsible for people's livelihood. People, have personal things, and as a manager, you have to be super supportive and just the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics of things. I run a nonprofit. That's like enough managing that I'd like to do. So I knew that I didn't want to manage people going into the company. I can't necessarily say like where I wanted to go within the company because the company is massive, so you can just go in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say exactly where I wanted to be within the company when I started. But I do think since becoming a mom, even if certain roles that I may have thought, even like manager positions that have been
Mm-hmm.
presented to me, like I was like, I have a child, like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't stop any managers at all. Like we have tons of managers that have kids, but for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have enough to focus on,
Right.
at home, so I can still be successful in my career especially within that company without being a manager. But
Mm-hmm.
I do, there are, different goals as far as levels within my company. So I started as an account manager when I came in. I'm now a senior account executive, so that's about like three promotions within the last 7 years. And actually,
Okay.
I had started preparing for the account executive role right before I went on maternity leave. So my former manager, she
Okay.
had been like putting me in contact with all the managers just to have like coffee chats and just really
Mm-hmm.
put myself out there within the company, and kind of develop a plan for like what that would look like when I come back from maternity leave. And I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciated that. She's a mom. She was a first time mom at that time too. Her son was like a few months old. Like she had just returned from maternity leave when I found out I was pregnant. But
Mm-hmm.
she really helped lay that groundwork for me. So when I came back from maternity leave, like sometimes people feel like they miss a lot while they're gone, or like their career stops when they're on maternity leave. But I felt like I jumped right back into it because I had already laid
Mm-hmm.
that foundation before I left, and started interviewing pretty much immediately when I came back from maternity leave and moved into the account executive role that I wanted.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I love it. I'm definitely all for women. So I work in talent acquisition. So I'm always just like pushing people as they come in for jobs, like especially women, just being more vocal because we're not as vocal, unfortunately, as men about our careers and the plans, like you say, that we have for ourselves, or even just negotiating our pay. But it's great to see that you are having those conversations. And so I'm curious, um, were these conversations, I know she put you in position to speak to people, but in terms of your promotions, were these conversations that you were openly having, like, hey, I am interested in moving up the ranks with your boss? Or was it, you were just doing such a great job and it was brought to you, or vice versa, because you've had a couple along the way?
I brought it to her. So how it works on our end is like you could be doing a great job, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the next role. You have to interview for
Mm-hmm.
every single role, and
Mm-hmm.
the competition is it's fierce. Like I said, it's one of the largest tech companies in the world. So the competition internally, and we're not even talking about any external factors. Like for one of the roles I went for, there were at least four internal candidates, maybe like two external candidates, full day of interviews as if I didn't even work at the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really put myself out there. It never is like, oh, you did a great job. Like, here's this role. You got to interview for it. You have to prepare for it. That's why it was like super important for me to just put myself out there in a company, meet other managers. We're big on, like, we have a crazy review process, a peer review process. Like, people think peer reviews don't matter, but like within this company, it really matters. Like, how you're
Mm-hmm.
empowering others to succeed, how you're empowering your teams to succeed, how you're leveraging the work of others. Like, all of those things go into our review process and our bonus payout. So I was just
Mm-hmm.
making sure I was doing a really good job of sharing out the work that I was doing on my client book, sharing out with my peers. Maybe it can help them. I'm sure they have the same challenges, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I'm raising my hands for certain stretch projects. And doing all the things to show that I was fully invested in my career growth, and that I could, I can take that next role and really do a good job doing it. And we're on quota as well. So that was the other thing, is
Mm.
like making sure that I was hitting my numbers every
Right.
quarter to show
Right.
that I can sell.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And I just hope that, there is a mom or woman out there listening and, really wanting to take that next step, is just like showing up and showing out, like standing out. So, if you could pinpoint one thing, what do you think made you stand out amongst the other, something that you were doing?
I think, well, I'm not going to say I think, I know. And the hiring manager, my last manager, before I moved over to this new team, he told me what got me the role over everyone else. So he was like,
Okay.
obviously, y'all all could do the role. Like, you all have been here the same amount of time. You
Mm-hmm.
all killed the interview. You know the job. He said, but what made me hire you was because I know that you could go to a client and have a difficult conversation with them, get to the point, and get the job done in a tactful way. And I was like, what do you mean by that? So what
Right.
he meant by that was, and this ties back to being a mom. So during the interview process, like it's not just an interview for, him interviewing me. I'm interviewing him. I want to know how you
That
manage a
part.
team, what are the team
Exactly.
dynamics, etc. And I think some people may have had a thought that because they've seen some of his team members, in the office at like 6:30 p.m. that like he requires his team to stay late. And so in the interview, I was like, look, I got a son. I was like, I leave the office I catch the, because I live in New Jersey, but I work in New York. And if you know anything
Okay.
about the area, it's super close. So it's like 40 minutes door to door. So I take a bus,
Mm-hmm.
like literally from the front of my house right into the office. So I was like, I catch the 5 o'clock bus. I'm usually home around 6ish. I do all the things with my son, get him ready for bed. And if I have work that I need to do or things to catch up on, like I have no problem signing back online, at night to do what I need to do. But
Once
hanging
I'm
around the
home.
office after 5 p.m. at where I'm at in my life is just not an option. And he said he appreciated that. He was like,
Mm,
no one would ever be able to say that to me. They would probably, walk on eggshells. And, most people think like, this is my manager, this is my boss. Like, I can't tell them what my working hours are or what my work style is. He was like, but that, like, we're not at that type of company. Like, if you're not your
mm-hmm.
best self at home, I know you're not going to be your best self at work. So he told me, he was like,
Absolutely.
that's what got you the role, is because I know as a seller, I can send you into your client's office and you're going to come back with the deal signed, because you're not going to spend an hour, fluffing up a presentation, or you're going to be
Right.
direct with the client and say, when can we activate on this?
Exactly. I love that. I love that. And what you said is so true, or what he said in terms of people will walk on eggshells. And just being transparent and upfront, I think a lot of times we as moms, we're fearful, right? We're because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that, I mean, probably at this stage in my life, definitely, because I've become a lot more transparent with my boss as well. But it's like you fear, because I was actually going to ask you, like, did you even have like any fear? Did you have any fear saying that to him? I mean, you said it, but did you second guess yourself in saying that or answering in that way?
No, I didn't, because I knew if he didn't appreciate that, then that was a team that wasn't going to work for me. I was already on a
Exactly.
team with a super supportive manager. Um, so I knew, as bad as I wanted that role, another one would open up at some point. It may be a year down the road, but whatever's, and I always believe whatever's for me is for me. Like, it will not pass me
Absolutely.
by. So I knew that role was for me. And I was so glad to land that role, because more importantly, he pushed me like beyond my limits, like
Hmm.
as far as like within my role. Like, he challenged me a lot to think outside the box, and that just made me a better seller.
Yeah. Yeah. And that also goes into when I talk about finding structure, because I talk about finding structure as a working mom, and it looks different for all of us, right? But you even created one thing is, I like to say, is set your boundaries. You set
Hmm.
your boundary up front. It wasn't after. It's like, look, if I'm coming into this is my expectation as far as work is concerned. I'm just letting you know, like, this is my boundary. I have to be gone because I have home obligations that I am going to tend to. But I'm committed to my job as well. If there are things that I need to get done, I can get them done on my time. And that's just so important when it comes to, finding that work life balance. But I don't even really like to call it balance. I like to call it structure,
Yes.
because balance is leveled, and it's not going to be leveled all the time. 5 o'clock, your priority has now changed to family time.
Hmm.
Like, and that's just how it is. But maybe between, the certain hours that you're in office, okay, at that time, work is the priority right now because that's where you are. But you already know, and that looks different for all of us. Like for me, being working from home, sometimes I log off at 4 or earlier. And but I'll get back on in the evening, once I've had time with my son and just kind of settle him down, and then, transition parent and go and do what I need to do. But it's just being able to like be as transparent as you are. And even I appreciate that, just listening as a working mom, is that you had the courage to do that. So what would be some advice, I guess, for a mom that you would like to share in that scenario of maybe they are conflicted on how to approach their manager about something like that? Like, hey, I need to be able to have work between these hours or whatever the case is. Honestly, just being transparent, like what would be some words of encouragement that you would share with them?
Yeah, so I would say, well, number one, I appreciate when you first said structure because I'm with you. There's no balance, especially when you're a mom. There is no such thing as balance. Like something's gonna be off. And I was just hoping you did not ask me that question today about how do you find balance? Because people ask that question to me all the
It
time,
doesn't
and I'm like,
exist.
there is no balance. Like you gotta find some harmony somewhere, but there is no balance. But in terms of like encouraging a mom, I feel like some women, people in general, and this could just be passed down from generations before us. Um, like when it comes to work, we feel like we have to be somebody totally different. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something that people have to get over as a whole. I'm not saying show up as yourself. Number one, show up as your most authentic self at work. And when you are showing up as yourself and not feeling like you have to live these silos, like this is work, this is home, this is what I do outside of work, then it becomes a lot more natural and it's a lot easier for you to have these conversations about,
Mm-hmm.
what you have going on at home. Like I've heard of moms scared to even say like, oh, my child is sick, I can't come in today. Like what? Never. No, my child is sick, everything stops. Like everything
Exactly.
stops, reschedule everything. That's it. So I think my first words of encouragement would be show up as yourself, and let that lead the way because people get to know you better. You don't become this like mysterious person, and they will
Mm-hmm.
understand why that's a priority or why you're having a conversation with them. Because anybody at work that knows me, they know, well, they all know Millennial Mama. Like so many people in my company like that I don't even work with directly. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you have a mom blog, like let me follow it, etc." Like, and I don't feel like I have to like hide who I am outside of work. I mean, obviously not everything.
Right, right.
I'm putting it on there. Well, I don't put it on that page anyway, but not everything. But like
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I live in these vacuums of my life that I can't have these authentic conversations. So one, show up as yourself. Two, let your work speak for itself. I mean, if you slacking at work, then I can't
That
I
part.
can't help you. Like you can't have a conversation. It's a two-way street. Like you can't ask for
Right.
something and you're giving nothing. Like you can't do
Hello.
that. So like if you're good at what you do and you are confident in your work and you know you are doing a good job, you then just have that conversation. I've,
Mm-hmm.
over the years, I know you mentioned earlier about like I set that boundary up front. Now, I may not have perfect boundaries anywhere else in my life, but when it comes to work, I definitely have good boundaries. And that's
Mm-hmm.
taken a lot of time of me, like just growing, therapy, all that stuff about having the difficult conversations. Like I read a lot of Brene Brown books, I'm obsessed with her, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
about rumbling and having those difficult conversations, and getting past that and just being able to put all that behind you. And because people think anytime you have a difficult conversation that that results in conflict, and that's not true. Sometimes those
Right.
difficult conversations, no matter what area of our life it's in, it's to like release something and to propel you to the next stage of whatever you're going through or talking about. So I think just really having those difficult conversations, and as I mentioned before, if they can't respect that, then they don't
It's
respect you. So
not for
maybe
you.
that isn't the place you need to be.
Exactly, exactly. And I say the same exact thing. It's just like once you get into it and you really, like we both said, it's like these aren't things that I necessarily thought of prior to becoming a mom. But once you do, and if you do plan to stay in your job, because sometimes people, end up leaving their jobs and, once they become a mom, but it's like I do personally have career goals that I want to hit before I step away and venture off to anything else. So it's just like, well, while I'm here, I am going to do my job. I'm good at my job. However, I need you to understand I am a mom first and I can get the
Exactly.
job done like I've been doing. You're just going to have to work with me. And if you can't respect that, like you said, then it's not the place for you. So I appreciate your authenticity with that and just being transparent and sharing that story because I'm pretty sure that that can help someone else that might be teetering on this on that scale. Like, do I say something? Do I not? Girl, say something and let it be known.
It's hard. I know it is. I've talked to so many people that it's just so hard for them. But the worst they can say is no. Like
Exactly.
all that's the what is the worst thing that can happen? And it's no.
Yeah. I think sometimes we get just afraid of like the no, but then it's like the what if afterwards. Are they gonna treat me different? Am I gonna lose my job? Am I gonna be,
Hmm.
pigeonholed in this role? Maybe I wanna grow in the company and I'm not going to be able to get promoted because they think that that's going to stop me from being um successful, in the position. But like you said, I think it's also important to, if you are showing up and doing the work, like how can they say you can't be successful
Definitely.
in it? But I love how you so you're juggling motherhood, your career, and your nonprofit. So let's talk about that. How long have you had your nonprofit?
Since 2011. So yeah,
Okay.
Princess Foundation was started in 2011. Definitely wasn't thinking about kids then. So that was like
Those were
my
your
first.
kids, right?
That was my first baby. I always say like that was my first baby. I was kind of I had been out of college for a few years, had just finished grad school. And I
Hmm.
wanted to give back to my community and wanted to just be a resource for young girls because I felt like I didn't have that when I was in high school outside of like the community that I grew up in. Everything was like really community focused, but like I live in New Jersey. I went to college in North Carolina, came back, met people from like all over the world. So I just wanted to be a resource for those young girls. So teamed up with some colleagues and friends of mine to
Hmm.
start the nonprofit, and we've been in business for 11 years now.
I love it. So you have a team that works with you?
Yes, so I have a team, and now, none of us were moms at that time, but now we're all moms as well. So that dynamic has changed as well because,
Hmm.
in a volunteer role, it's so easy to just get up and go. Like we have a meeting, we have community service, we have this, we have that. But over the years, we start building out our family, so things have slowed down a little. We'd had to like change a lot of our processes, work smarter, not harder, because now this is
Right.
something else outside of home and work that we're all juggling. It
Hmm.
hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of bumps in the roads, making sure giving people adequate time off, when they have their little ones, and then
Right.
having to pick up the work from them because, again, we are all volunteers. And
Hmm.
it's not like an incentive for anyone to stay because at this point, we're not getting paid. We're literally, doing this
Kind of
out
for
of
your
pure
heart.
love and passion.
Hmm.
But I think because we've done great work and because everyone that works with me stands by the mission of the organization, which is to be a resource for young women of color to develop skills, to develop skills that will help them through adulthood. I think because everyone kind of believes in that mission and the work that we've done, it's enticed them to stay.
Right. So, what keeps you grounded and motivated when you're having all of these tasks to do? Because, you also mentioned that you are a wife as well, and which is
Hmm.
another piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, that's
So,
like having a third kid.
listen, I am not married yet, but I understand I'm having that partnership and having someone else to consider. So, how do you stay motivated with it all? I know you said that the nonprofit, it's a passion. Um, so I know that helps to push that motivation, but just staying grounded and even disciplined to still manage everything that you're doing and
I
family.
think just remembering my why. So remembering why I started the nonprofit, remembering why, and a big piece of Millennial Mama and the why of Millennial Mama is to show my kids that you don't just have to be a mom. Like you can still chase your dreams, chase your kids,
Hmm.
do all of those things. So I think just remembering the why kind of gives me that push because there are a lot of times where I've considered like, do I just pass the baton on this nonprofit? Like it it's just another area of my life that I have to groom in leading the nonprofit, like really being that strategic thinker and bringing the team together and again managing people.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of times that I question that, but I remember my why I started it. I remember how many young girls we have sent to college and we've helped along the way. So that has kept me motivated to keep on going. We've always been grassroots or like funding money from grants. During COVID, we were virtual, of course. So we met all of our meetings with our mentees were on Zoom. But we secured a grant during COVID that allowed us to actually open our own center in March.
Mhm.
So we opened up our doors in March. We're like in the process of furnishing it and all that stuff.
Oh,
But then that
congratulations.
again, thank you. But then that's something else where I'm like, ooh, time away from home. Like I was doing Zoom meetings over the past 2 years, so that was cool. But now, like, I have somewhere to go and somewhere to be. But again, like I said, it allows us to move to work smarter and not harder, and
Mhm.
allows me to delegate more to kind of have that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm kind of like experiencing now as well, just even with the boss mom, because it's like, okay, this is something else taking me away.
Mhm.
Not my job is not like super demanding, but that's still time, like you said, that you're away from family. So
Yeah.
just trying to stay motivated because I do get those times where I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna just hang it up. Like just
Let
because
me just
I'm
turn my phone on, turn
tired.
the
Yeah,
computer off. I
like
don't want to do nothing. I'll just be a mom today.
exactly. Like or just be me. Look, you
Yeah.
too. You gotta go too. Go
Yeah.
with your dad. But it's like just finding those encouragement. But I think like you said, finding your why or just going back to your why to keep yourself reminded, like this is why I'm doing this, seeing the bigger picture and where you want things to ultimately go. Do you ever see yourself leaving corporate America or just a 9 to 5 to pursue your nonprofit at some point?
That is the long term goal. So I love what I do. I love the money I make. That's kind of what,
Look, right, that part.
my main hustle definitely funds a lot of my side hustles. So and that's
Hmm.
something else. Like, even though that's not a question you asked, like for anyone, like everyone thinks like you have to leave corporate, etc. Like if you want to pursue your dreams, no, your main hustle can fund your side hustle. That
Hmm.
is my biggest investor. But
Yes.
I think long term, my goal, I always say, and I think I'm at 9 now. I'm like, if anybody asks me, even my manager, I'm like, I got about 9 more years in me, like 9 more years of corporate America. But that's to do other things. So my husband and I, we have been during the pandemic and over the last year, like we've been doing a lot more investing,
Hmm.
dipping our toe in like the real estate waters and stuff like that. So that is kind of something that I want to focus a lot on is our
Hmm.
family business, and then running the nonprofit as well. Millennial Mama, I love it. It's my blog. It's for fun. I do influencer work. I take paid campaigns, but it's not like something that I'm running after to be like this full time influencer. Whatever
Hmm.
God has for me, whatever way the wind blows, like I'm gonna roll with it. But it's not like this long term goal that I want to, quit my job and be this full time influencer. Even though there's great money there,
Right.
that's just always being on, like always being on with your life, and I just can't do that right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the long term goal is to leave corporate. I always joke, and I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot where I say this, like they don't have to kick me out the door, like this is my last corporate company, but I love it there. So that's why I say
Yes.
that, like I can't even see myself anywhere else because I just love it. And that's not to say that things can't happen or
Right.
like, that I have these, what do they call them? These, I don't know, like faded glasses. And I'm just like, I'm not in the honeymoon phase anymore. I've been there for 7 years by now. But yeah, there are other things that I want to do. So I'm eventually going to
Hmm.
leave corporate. I do want to have a little more autonomy in my day. But for now, I'm just really enjoying the ride, seeing where it could take me. And this may change in 3 years. Like I may take on
Right.
another role within my company that may make you want to stay even longer. But
Hmm.
the purpose of why we're talking today and everything we've talked about with everything else I have going on in my life, I do want to branch out and do other things in about 9 to 10 years.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like I tell people all the time, like if you are happy in what you're doing and you're 9 to 5, like be happy. And then like what you said too, I 100% agree. Like, it is the main investor in all of my side hustles, but it's like I'm happy. And I think once you find a company too that you just are genuinely happy with, and being happy in what you do too, because a lot of times we
Mhm.
might show up for these jobs and it's just like it's literally just a job. It's not any
Yeah.
type of, I really like what I'm doing here. I like the company, so that makes it, better. But if you really have found like your career and you're just like, I'm excelling here and I want to continue, like, it is nothing wrong with that. But definitely, I agree. It is at some point in my life too, I will walk away, going into something of my own. But I think I found a company and I've only been here for a year, but it's just like, it's been a great year. And I see other opportunities for me to kind of dip my toe into other areas as well. So, I don't know about 9 years, but I definitely got a couple more in me for sure. But I just appreciate your transparency this evening and just sharing your experience as a millennial corporate mom and being able to juggle the multiple hats that you're wearing. So I want to give you the chance to let the audience know how they can find you and your blog, and support you there.
Yeah, definitely. So you can check out my blog, www.millennialmama.com. So there I share all the things I'm thinking, tips, tricks, all that stuff. I'm a little behind because life has been lifing. But I also share a lot more on my Instagram page. So that's at the Millennial Mama, two M's in Mama. So MAMMA. So there you will see my day to day, the highs, the lows, my crazy kids, all that stuff, my girl time, my self care time, because I'm still really big on that. Like, mama's got to have a life too. I'm going to still go out. I'm
Hello.
going to still take that trip, all that stuff. So, yeah, follow me on Instagram to keep up with what's going on and talk.
Yes. And also share your nonprofit, for anyone that
Yes.
may want to support.
Yes, so my nonprofit is the Princess Foundation. That web address is www.princessfoundationnj.org. You can check out our programs, read more about our scholarship, how you can donate to our scholarship program, and we're also on Instagram at Princess Foundation NJ.
Love it, love it. Well, I appreciate your time, Ebony, and I am going to let you get back to your family. But we are
I
here,
hope they're
ladies,
asleep.
right? Because it is evening. Look, 9. But yes, ladies, season 5, episode 10, the last episode of this season. I hope you
Congrats to you
enjoy.
on 5 seasons.
Thank you, thank you. Listen,
Enjoy
it
your
has been.
much deserved break.
I will, and you all will see a lot more from the Boss Mom movement. But we are going to wrap, and as I let you ladies know this all the time, is to stay bossy and stay motivated. And I will see you all in 2023. Hey, ladies, if you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor and leave a 5-star rating and review. You can find the Boss Mom movement streaming on Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Want to keep up with the movement? Visit my website at thebossmommovement.com and subscribe. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you next time.